When studying abroad goes wrong, the Narumi Kurosaki case. I think I said it correctly. But yeah, the Narumi Kurosaki case. Okay. Again, I think I said it right. Let me just get into it.
Studying abroad in a foreign country is usually a fun, interesting, and enlightening experience for those who are able to achieve it. However, in this case, it ended in the worst possible way. Today we have a young woman named Narumi Kurosaki,
I said it
21
right.
years old,
She's
Tokyo
pretty.
born. Upon coming
She's
to
pretty,
adulthood,
she's pretty.
she got into the University of Tsukuba in the Ibaraki prefecture. She's often described as a kind girl who was both modest and outgoing. She's very internationally minded and worldly, and a good portion of her friend circle consisted of foreigners.
Okay.
She herself decided to go abroad but worried about the cost. However, these worries flew away when she was able to secure a scholarship.
Oh, that's
Happily,
good.
she decided to attend the University of Franche-Comté in Besançon, out in eastern France near the French Alps.
Besançon?
In 2016, she flew out there and began her studies, intending to study language, namely French, of course. For 6 months, she did great. She had a fantastic circle of friends from all different countries and was doing very well in her studies. She even got herself a boyfriend in that time. All in all, she was doing pretty great in life. However, being the channel that this is, you know it's not going to be all sunshine and rainbows.
Yep.
Narumi had a cancer in her life, just waiting in the background to inevitably come out and ruin her. That cancer's name was Nicolas Zepeda Contreras.
Nicolas Zepeda
Narumi met
Contreras.
Nicolas, 24 years old at the time, back when she was attending her university in Ibaraki back in...
You know, it sucks, you know, and I've said it to my friends before, like, in general, like, sometimes we have conversations about these, like, just certain type of people in it. Look at Narumi. You know, I'm assuming she's dead, so rest in peace, her. A beautiful girl. Beautiful girl, had her life ahead of her, you know, smart, intelligent, outgoing, as they said, you know, just a beautiful woman. Gave this fucking slides faced pussy-o a chance. And look what happened. Look what happened. A man that looks like this, not even a man, it's a little boy, right, that looks like this, does not deserve a woman that looks like this. God rest her soul. I hope she's resting in heaven, bro. I know what he did, didn't it? Or whatever it is that he did. You know what? I'll say it for the end. Let's see what he did.
2014, 2 years prior to the current point in our story. Nicholas was a Chilean national living in Japan. He was in her locale in Japan working as a teaching assistant when they met.
Okay.
A romance brewed and they started dating. For a while, Nicholas would introduce Narumi as his girlfriend. However, this romance was the opposite of a slow
My bad, sir.
burn. So, a fast burn. The point is, they were very passionate, but in the end, they were only together for a few short months before they broke it off. They broke it off, but remember the bad cancer analogy from before. Nicholas didn't just go away. He was there in the background, still in contact with Narumi. It's believed that, for a while at least, they did cut contact with each other, but only for a while. Eventually, unfortunately, while Narumi was in France, they reconnected. Despite Narumi having a new boyfriend, they exchanged over 1,000 messages online. Whether or not that's a lot comes down to the way you typically send messages, but obviously
I don't want to say anything in it. I don't want to say anything. Because I assume this girl is dead in it. I assume she's dead in it. However, though, you've gone back to France. You got a whole new boyfriend, and you now rekindle. Now you got back in contact with your ex, and you've now with this ex have exchanged over 1,000 messages with each other. Now I would say something. I really would say something. But if she is dead, I don't want to disrespect her, so.
Obviously, a lot could be said in that amount.
I don't want to
Nicholas
disrespect her.
admitted that he still had feelings for her, and after doing so, he flew out to France. December 4th, 2016. The two decided to meet up and hang out for a day. One would wonder how Narumi felt about this meetup. Was she looking for closure? Did she just see it as hanging out with an old friend? Could she maybe have still had feelings for him? Unfortunately, that's all unclear. They went to a museum together, then they went out to dinner, and then after that, the two returned to her dormitory at the university together. It would be the last time Narumi Kurosaki was ever seen. Shortly after, several other students in the dormitory heard screams of terror and shouting. However, none of them went on to call the police.
Okay, before I even get to what was just said, before he just said what he just said, again, I'm not gonna disrespect. She's clearly dead in it. I'm not gonna disrespect this girl. I won't. But a whole new boyfriend, your ex has now got in contact with you, and you are now contacting him as well. You've exchanged over 1,000 messages, and knowingly you've allowed him to fly out to where you are to meet up, hang out, have dinner, and then go back to your dorm. Now, again, I'm not gonna say anything about her because it's disrespectful. She is dead. May she rest in peace. But if a woman / girl did this whilst they were alive and still alive to this day because nothing happened to them that was bad, and they did exactly what she did, I'm not gonna say it, but you know what I mean. Like, come on now. Like, we can all try to make excuses and try to just there, you know. Yeah, it's nothing to do with trust issues or being insecure. Come on, it's about respect, bro. Come on, like you know. Okay.
None of them ever.
And then moving on to the next bit that he now has mentioned that I almost forgot about. People in the dormitory heard screams of terror, and not one person called the police. I know me in it. If I was in my uni or com and I'm hearing oh fucking hell. oh that messed up my throat, Jesus. You know, me personally, I'll look at my people. If I can't see anything, I'm going to stay there and listen again. If the screams are going on still and they're getting actively worse, believe I'm calling the police straight away. In my brain, there's one of two things that are happening. One, someone is getting raped. Or two, someone is genuinely getting murdered. Either way, that's the worst two things I can think of in my brain at the time of me hearing something like that going on. And I have to call the police. You know what I'm saying? I have to. That's ridiculous. No one called the police. Mental.
Saw her again, either. Narumi Kurosaki completely disappeared without a trace. Nobody could find her, nobody could reach her on her cell phone either. And oddly, her credit card account had also been suspended.
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it, just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44, a complete...
Shortly after her disappearance, Nicholas left the country to eventually return to Chile. However, first, he decided to stop and pay a visit to his cousin in Spain. While in conversation with his cousin, he lied and told him that he hadn't seen Narumi ever since he left Japan. In fact, he claimed that he had a new girlfriend in Germany. And, something his cousin took as strange, Nicholas asked him not to post anything about their visit onto social media. And then he left. Back in France, local media was buzzing about the disappearance of a young international student. French authorities were working hard to ascertain the whereabouts of Narumi, but weren't having any luck. It didn't take much time for them to learn of Nicholas's presence, and they began searching for him as well, but also not having any luck. They released her photo to the public in hopes that someone would spot her, and they notified their EU counterparts in order to get help searching for Nicholas. Soon after, the French media was blasting Nicholas's picture all over the news, notifying everyone that he was being sought out by the authorities for a suspected murder. Around December 12th, back in Andean County in Chile, Nicholas voluntarily went to the police station to explain the situation. It's apparent that his case wasn't being taken seriously, as he was let go and not detained. Nicholas continued living somewhat normally back in his home country. Living in a nice, high-rise apartment building in the capital, witnesses would often see him out and about, behaving as normal, coming and going as he pleased. Although Narumi still hadn't been found, the police proceeded with the missing persons case as if it were a murder. Shortly after, the French prosecutors went on to put Nicholas on an international wanted list for murder, among other charges. An official stated that they have enough evidence to reasonably believe that Narumi had been murdered. Nicholas's face ended up on international wanted lists all over the world. At this point, he must have really started sweating, as he was behaving very suspiciously. Chilean media began following him around and tracking his movements. He was spotted leaving his apartment, hiding in the cargo area of his father's pickup truck where he thought he couldn't be seen. He was spotted leaving his apartment, hiding in the cargo area of his father's pickup truck where he thought he couldn't be seen. Later, on January 5th, he was believed to be hiding in a city in central Chile. Local news caught him entering a condominium, driving a truck that his father owns, believing to have been going there to hide out in a condo that his mother owned. Prosecutors in Chile began feeding the French authorities information about Nicholas and his whereabouts, as French authorities combed a forest out in eastern France for clues. After reaching the end of their...
What makes it worse, right? For me at least, is the fact that he's Latino, innit? He's one of my people, innit? I thought he was just, you know, wherever she was studying, I thought she was just French or whatever, just with a odd name. So I thought he was like maybe just born in France, but of other European descendants. But no, he's Chilean. I know what, you know, obviously they're going to explain that at some point within the next like 7-8 minutes. But for the most part, right, I'm assuming it is him. Obviously, the person who edited this video has not stopped reminding us about the cancer right here. So because of that, I'm more disappointed because obviously, you know, he's Latino. And the only thing I can say to him is, que se quema en la infierno, hijo de gran puta.
Investigation and releasing all of the information that they had on the suspect. The Chilean prosecutors ended their investigation.
It's terrible, man, I'm telling you.
For the time being. Now it was time for the French authorities to gather all of the clues and information and finally make a call to extradite Nicholas, which tends to be fairly difficult to pull off.
Why?
However, Chile's Ministry of the Interior and Public Security expressed that they were absolutely on board with the extradition request. They sent out a statement to local media that they were working in collaboration with the French police. Everything seemed good to go.
Okay.
The police kept looking for clues as to what happened to Narumi. They were never able to find her, but they were able to scrounge up a good amount of clues and evidence to form a hypothesis on what likely happened to her. First, the police acquired CCTV footage of both Nicholas and Narumi entering the dorm.
Okay.
They also found blood near the fire escape in her room. Nicholas was later recorded leaving the building alone. They later found that Nicholas had driven his car up to a forested area in the suburbs of Busan-san. He then rented a car there and drove to the Dole area, about 40 kilometers southwest. During this trip, he bought 5 liters of flammable liquid and some matches. With all of this information, it's not hard to come to a safe assumption of what happened to Narumi. Police combed the
Burned her
forest area
corpse.
in the vicinity for days, even going as far as having divers check the rivers, but they didn't come upon anything. Heavy winter snow and frozen waterways hindered their efforts in the search. The blanket of snow would likely hide anything that would appear out of place within the thick forests. After learning of Nicholas's status as being a wanted man suspected of murder, a Japanese acquaintance of both Nicholas and Narumi came forth. This acquaintance went on to explain to the police that Nicholas had asked him for a favor, which at the time seemed innocuous, but now seemed very suspicious.
What's the favor?
The acquaintance said that, back in mid-December, Nicholas had requested some translations. One thing that he wanted translated into Japanese was, "I happen to be in an environment where I can't connect to the internet." Another phrase was, "I have a new boyfriend, but I'm leaving alone." And another was, "I'm taking a trip on a train." It's pretty easy to see what Nicholas was planning to do with these phrases.
Yeah, text people
Police and
to make
the
it not
media
so
believe
suspicious.
that Nicholas planned to take Narumi's phone and make it appear that she was still alive,
Yeah.
using these phrases for at least a little while.
Fucking ads.
In Japan, authorities were getting very restless. One of their citizens, a student, was missing, likely murdered, in a foreign country, and nobody could really give them any information as to what was going on.
No,
The
that makes sense to
visiting
be
foreign
frustrated,
minister,
yeah.
Fumio Kishida, called for France's help in solving the case and getting some justice. The French foreign minister promised that Paris would keep Tokyo informed on what was going on in the case every step of the way. Chile additionally promised Japan that it would fully cooperate in capturing Nicholas and handing him over. Tokyo was able to secure a promise that all of this would be handled. Now, fast forward to the next month, February. Shockingly, the Supreme Court in Chile rejected the request to detain and extradite Nicholas. In Chile, they're the ones responsible for deciding whether or not to detain someone who is wanted in a foreign criminal investigation. All they would go on to do was prevent Nicholas from leaving the country for 2 months. The Supreme Court would go on to say that they felt the decision to detain and extradite Nicholas lacked sufficient evidence. They told the French prosecutors that they would need to step up their game and provide some more concrete evidence before they would feel the extradition was justified.
Oh my god, Chile,
And
what
then
are you
3
doing?
long years would pass. And finally, in April 2020, the Supreme Court of Chile finally granted the request by the French prosecutors to extradite Nicholas to France. They finally stated that they felt there was enough evidence to determine that Nicholas was indeed the last person to see Narumi before she disappeared. They felt that his actions afterward led to a reasonable murder charge being brought against him. However, Nicholas' defense argued that it is impossible to bring murder charges without a body ever being found. The Supreme Court promptly called bullshit and proceeded with the extradition. Nicholas and his defense were determined to appeal the decision. He was given one chance to appeal, and his extradition was put on hold until they could come to a conclusion on that. Luckily, his appeal failed pretty quickly, and the extradition continued. In May of 2020, the courts granted final approval for the extradition request, a full 4 years after Narumi's disappearance. Extraditions typically take about 2 months, but there were fears that the pandemic would delay proceedings.
Yeah,
Nicholas
pandemic.
continued to deny any
What about that?
wrongdoing whatsoever as his extradition proceeded. A French prosecutor was quoted as saying, "I am very pleased with the decision. This will now allow a trial with the suspect present." It was something that they had worked for years to accomplish. On July 7th, 4 French police officials arrived in Santiago to extradite Nicholas. Due to the pandemic, Nicholas was forced to quarantine for 3 weeks before heading over to France. He did so under house arrest. Nicholas continued to deny any wrongdoing and stated that he felt Narumi was alive and well out there somewhere.
Oh yeah, he's just out there
The
somewhere.
prosecutor said that the testimony of Nicholas's cousin, as well as the Japanese acquaintance, and the purchase of the rental car carried the most weight in his case. Nicholas has given various explanations for his car rental to the authorities, but they have stated that none of them are convincing in the least. He admitted to spending at least part of the night of December 4th of 2016 with Narumi in her room on campus, but he claimed that she was alive and well when he left her that night. However, there was a wealth of evidence against him. Nearly every clue out there contradicted his version of the events. Nicholas's trial has been delayed and delayed. He is yet to receive a sentencing, but investigators still fully believe that he killed Narumi in a jealous rage over her new relationship. Nicholas's trial is expected to start in autumn. If he is convicted and found guilty of the murder, he faces life in prison. If you're interested in seeing what happens with this case, be sure to subscribe, as I do provide case updates on here. Narumi has still never been found.
Really?
Her family hopes that, one day, Nicholas will finally admit to where she is, so that they can actually have some closure. Once again, thank you so much for watching.
I don't think they'll ever find the body, in the sense of like, remember what he said in it? 5 tubs of gasoline he bought and matches. If there was a body, it's been burnt to a crisp, ashes now. I can't lie in it. Like, most likely the body is ashes.